Hello and good morning. We are here talking Spider-Man 2. I am joined by this awesome panel of expert reviewers and critics. Starting on my right or left, depending how you're looking at this, we have the maker of chaos. How are you doing? Good morning. Thanks for joining
Doing
us.
good.
And we have Doragon. What's going on? Thanks for coming on by. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome, awesome. This is Marvel's Spider-Man 2, released on the Sony PlayStation 5. We are going to jump right into it, going over what we thought of the game, our reviews, holding no punches, talking all spoilers. So be warned, we are going to talk spoilers. And if you're new to the channel, a couple things you can do to support. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share, as well as you'll find the channels of the lovely people here in the description below. Without now that we're done all that housekeeping, let's get into the review. Okay, Spider-Man 2. The question that we are going to ask here is this a game of the year contender? And through these questions, we are going to find out, and then we will be justified with next week when we hear what's going to be entered. So let's jump into it. The big thing of our day and age is graphics. How does Marvel's Spider-Man 2 compare to its predecessor to graphics and visual presentations, particularly in capturing the essence of Marvel? Now, this is sort of a fluffy question, but I just want you to talk about your experience with the graphics, and we'll start with Maker of Chaos here to the side, and then we'll move to Dorgon.
For me, the game is absolutely beautiful. I think they did a fantastic job of improving the visuals. So I found it even better than Miles and the original Spider-Man. Um, I think they did a beautiful job with making it a beautiful game.
Awesome, awesome. And Dorgon, how did you feel in terms of the graphics and comparing it to, the original Spider-Man and Miles?
Bit of a mixed bag for me. I played on the 60 frames per second mode, so the performance mode rather than the fidelity, and it was only rendering at 1080p. So as good as aspects are, like the textures look fantastic, the draw distances are longer than we've seen in previous titles in the series. The busyness of the streets, the different people moving around, the cars on the roads, and all this interaction that the city has. You can swing around and find crashes and such. It all looked fantastic, but it looked lesser than what I'd had before because that 60 FPS mode was rendering at a lower resolution than what the 60 FPS modes were in the previous games. But then when you turn it up to 4K, when you put it on fidelity, it blows its predecessors out of the water. It's an absolutely gorgeous game, as Maker said. Everywhere you go, everything you do, there's something to look at, something to marvel at. It's for me, it was a bit more of a mixed bag, I thought.
Nice, nice. And my distinction happens to be with the character models versus what I saw in the city. I thought both Spider-Men looked incredibly detailed. When you have the Venom skin in, you can feel that it's a fleshy symbiote. But when you swing past a building, you look inside a window, like the rooms are all very basic, plain generated. It doesn't. It almost takes a little bit away from the immersion, but you can tell how hard they worked on the character models as a juxtaposition. But yeah, cool, cool, cool. Let's jump into how we thought about the story. The story is what Sony features specializes in. This is how they get their bread and butter, what they are known for, in my opinion. What are the key elements of the story and plot developments in this game? How well does it engage the players in the Spider-Man narrative? And Dorgon, will start with you this time.
I think it's an absolutely fantastic story. The first 90 seconds, the very first cutscene that you see, that hooked me for the rest of the game. I was in for the long haul from the first 90 seconds. From the moment you press X on the main menu to that first cut, it shows you Norman and Harry interacting. It shows you the Venom symbiote coming off Norman onto Harry to heal whatever ailment he is suffering from. And like that is a complete rewriting of Spider-Man lore that I've known for 35 years at this point. So that had me interested immediately. And the way they keep doing that, they give you something that's established in the wider Spider-Man lore and then shift it around, twist it that a little bit to keep you on your toes, keep you engaged, keep things fresh. I thought it was incredibly well executed, start to finish. Craven is the most dangerous we have ever seen that character. I don't think there's been a more ruthless, more brutal version of him. Venom, like the evolution of the symbiote into becoming Venom, how Peter, Harry, and everybody who interacts with it turn it into the Venom that we know and love from the comics is amazing. I I'm in awe of it. I don't think it hit me as hard emotionally as the previous two stories from both Miles and Marvel's Spider-Man. It felt a little bit more distilled, but that could also just be it's a Venom story. We've had Venom stories told to us time immemorial, like almost every other year since I've been into Spider-Man. It doesn't stop it being great. It's just that emotional connection wasn't as strong for me this time out.
Yeah, I have to
Well
agree.
said.
I thought it was a very good story, but to me, it wasn't quite the connection that one and two had. I almost wish there were a little bit more sit down moments with the characters, and maybe um, I was thinking about this the other day, and I think back to like God of War Ragnarok, and how there would be those moments where they all just sitting down at the table talking and conversing, and I like, almost wish there was a bit more of that in the game, so that I felt more emotionally attached to these characters. But overall, I did think it was a very good story, and I enjoyed it a lot.
I feel like they did that well in Miles Morales, where they had a couple sit downs, and you got to discuss,
Yeah.
and there was the music part of that story as well, where you got to learn about the family's background. So I do agree with you. There was no like sit downs like Peter, Mary Jane, and Miles and Harry could have all gone out for like dinner or something. There was that Coney Island bit, but there should have been
Yeah.
maybe more story development. Bring Haley in.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know Maker is a fan of Haley and wanted to see more of her.
Oh,
But
hell yeah.
for me, the Sony brought in so many epic moments. I've never been in a boss fight and wiping away the tears with Scream with this emotional battle about their relationship and how he's not present and like how he needs to be better, more Peter Parker and less Spider-Man. I mean, the emotions were so high in so many moments that I felt like they hit higher highs in this one than I felt in Miles or Spider-Man, and that may just be my personal opinion, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think they keep evolving and making it better with each iteration of these games. But everyone's got their own opinions, and let's try not to just say this is the best game ever, right? So let's jump into game mechanics. There are significant improvements like the parry system and even changes to the gameplay mechanics, combat, and traversal, like the controversial web wings, compared to the first game. How do these enhancements impact your gaming experience? And Maker Chaos, we will start with you this time.
I absolutely love the parry system. I'm so glad that they added it. I liked it a lot. My only complaint would probably be that there's some boss fights where I kind of wish it was a little bit more distinct as to what I could parry and what I couldn't. Because sometimes when I would try and parry something, it felt like, okay, so maybe I can't parry this one, and it bugged me a little bit. And but the traversal, you mentioned the traversal, and I think it pairs well with that. I thoroughly enjoyed the traversal mechanics, and overall, really good.
Nice, nice. And Doragon, how did you feel about the new combat and the new traversal mechanics?
I have nothing bad to say about the traversal mechanics at all. I don't think, other than the one time my partner fell through the map while she was swinging through the city. Don't know what happened there, but she wasn't recording, so I can't use that footage. But outside of that, I've got nothing bad to say. I used fast travel 4 times, and 2 of those were just to see how fast it was, because everybody was like, oh, it's amazingly quick. So I did it twice to see how fast it was, and then remembered about it right at the end of my playthrough as I was going to get the platinum trophy. So that gives you an idea of how solid the traversal in this game is. When you don't think about using fast travel, the sort of combination of the fly tubes, the web wings, the slingshots, and good old web swinging that was so solid from the previous game, and the fact you can adjust the assistance that the engine gives you with web swinging in this one, so you can get more of that pendulum effect like you do in the movies. I thought that was a really good addition, and it's a nice way to crank up the difficulty of the game in just swinging around and trying to get better. Uh, in terms of like your combat and stuff, I did like the addition of a parry system. I didn't think I would, because that feels more like a melee combat with a weapon type mechanic, but it worked really well, similar to what Maker said, when it worked, when you could tell what you could parry and what you couldn't. Some things weren't as obvious as others, but you could get such a good flow in combat going, especially in some of those boss fights, the likes of Craven. That boss fight when you're in the black suit, the flow you can get going in that fight is absolutely amazing. It feels like you are this ultra powered anti-hero, I suppose, at that point as Black Suit Spider-Man. But I did miss things from previous games. There were gadgets missing from this one, like the web bombs and impact webbing, which really nullified a lot of my stealth approaches, which is how I like to play the game. I'm a stealthy gamer. I don't like to just go in face first, guns blazing, getting your friend shot in the arse sort of idea. I'm very much like to stealth infiltrate, Metal Gear Solid, Assassin's Creed, those sort of games. But a few of the tools were removed for that one. A few were added, which assisted things like the web line. Like, that is a genius addition. Why we didn't have that in the last game? It makes perfect sense for Spider-Man to make his own tightrope sort of thing. But overall, I think they streamlined things. They stripped out what wasn't necessary, added in some new additions like the face buttons, the individual Spider-Man powers like the spider legs and the venom attacks with Miles, and they worked really, really well with what was there. It felt more constricted than the previous games, which narratively and mechanically made no sense with how we'd played it previously. But again, once you're in that symbiote suit, you kind of forget what all else is going on.
Um, I just wanted to briefly talk about the
Yeah,
gadgets a
jump in.
little bit. I didn't really get to talk. Um, I kind of wish there was one or two more things that would help me ranged wise, because
Yeah,
there was definitely a couple like no hit challenges that I was quite frustrated with ranged units, people who had guns, and for me trying to get like the perfect. It's hard to tell, like, because just the spidey sense pops up over your
yeah,
head. You don't really tell, like, is that someone close or is that someone far away? And for me, I kind of wish I had more range stuff so I could take out those gunners a little quicker. Um, just because they're just annoying, because I would dodge one of the guys up close and then get hit right after that by a gunner.
yeah,
So
yeah. Know exactly what you're on about. Very frustrating, especially when it's in those Mysterio challenges.
yeah.
And for me, I honestly feel like they gave you too many things. Like, why did I keep regenerating gadgets? I felt like that economy should have been different. I feel like I should have maybe gathered parts and built these gadgets and only use them in certain situations, because honestly, throwing a gadget in the air and having all the enemies smack together into one was a little like too cheese for
It,
me.
that did make it
I
really easy at times.
Yeah, I get the
And
spider
there's also the
abilities.
reason of, because video games. On occasion, we have to
Yeah, because
suspend
video games.
disbelief because video games.
I just felt like they handed you too many gadgets. That was just my opinion. The parry system, absolutely loved. I'd way rather parry than dodge. However, putting up two forearms, I feel is not like a parry, but okay. I feel like maybe a different animation could have been used, something more Spidey centric. That was just my thinking. Traversal, Absolutely. You know what, Dorgon? I didn't even know that in the accessibility you could change your web swing. So I'm gonna have to go
Oh,
check
try
that
it.
out.
Turn it down
Yeah.
to 0 and try to web swing. It's hilarious.
But other than that, I mean, I would be constantly zipping through using the upgrades that you could use while you were flying, basically Iron Manning across the city. That one challenge where you got to fly from one part of the city to the next part of the city. Easy breezy when you have all these upgrades. So, definitely appreciate the game mechanics they added. However, I do have some criticisms. Now, speaking about that traversal, that map, everyone is going to criticize the map, right? Because it's New York again plus one borough. So, how expansive and detailed is the new open world of New York City? It's not really New York City, it's two boroughs in Spider Man 2. And are there significant changes and additions to these activities? So, we'll discuss the map, how we thought about the map, and we'll start with Maker of Chaos, I believe, this time.
Um, I enjoyed the map. I did have some complaints about it though. For me, especially towards like Queen's side, there were some buildings outside of bounds that I remember one of them in particularly had a purple light, and when I was looking around for Prowler stuff to go to, I wound up trying to go over there, and it's like you're going outside the bounds, and I'm like, what? Like it's purple. Prowler's purple, and it really bugged me that I was like, okay, you're gonna have this particular color that there's a mission type where you look for the purple colors, and it's outside the bounds. They definitely could have done better with that. Um, at least get rid of that purple light.
Yeah, just
uh,
change the color of the light for you. Make it green or yellow or something. But yeah.
or make it feel a little bit more distinct where it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going outside the bounds, instead of that way it kind of gives that illusion of um, like you don't actually hit the boundary. You get close and you're like, oh, this is the wrong way, let me turn around. um, and I would say that was my biggest complaint. I did like the additional stuff that they added. um, I do wish maybe there was a bit more of a change of scenery, like a little bit more diverse than kind of the Queens. But that's just me.
Dorgon, how did you feel about the map?
I mean, I've been playing Spider-Man games since the PS1 Dreamcast version way back on PlayStation 1. So I have there's buildings in this game that I have been seeing in Spider-Man games since all the way back then. And Spider-Man is a New York-based superhero. That there's not too many jet-setting, world-trotting versions of him, if we're being honest. So I wasn't expecting a big change. The Sandman fight at the beginning of the game did change the structure of the area. It did change some areas quite drastically. Buildings had fallen over completely. He had created like giant hands and areas of effect. So that changed quite a large portion of the map immediately just through destruction and bits that you could swing from previously not being there this time. But otherwise, it's New York. I wasn't expecting a huge change to the map. I don't know the region. I've never been, so I can't say it's accurate or not. But the addition of Queens, where Pete lives, absolutely fantastic. Being able to go over to Coney Island, which again, having never been there, never been to, I was living vicariously through these characters. I was jet setting around the globe from the comfort of my living room, sort of thing. It was really nice. It was really cool. It was New York. I didn't expect anything else, and I can't understand people who gripe about a New York-based superhero operating in New York. That's just a mental disconnect for me.
I understand that. I did like the additions of the Avengers building. There was some very unique stuff happening. They had Times Square, and I've been to Times Square, and it looked pretty much exactly like how would they show it in the game. So there are a lot of similarities, so it's fun to go through. I mean, I'm pretty sure Central Park is bigger than that with a lot more things in it, but it's fun to swing through and and see that kind of thing. What I would like to see, and although this is crazy, is give me a replication of New York. I think that would be a standard that would wow me, and a technical performance challenge that I don't understand. But that would be my expectation, to really see the power of a PS5. Like, give me a scale representation. But hey,
Yeah.
that's just me dreaming for the moon. But other
I
than that,
I
it was cool that they added a borough. We didn't just get New York, Manhattan again. So they did give us something significant, and I will credit them for that. Sorry, Maker, you had something to add there?
yeah, I just wanted to say you about recognizing places. There's like once or twice where I would swing around and be like, "Oh, there's Rockefeller Center," and I've been to New York twice, and it does a really good job of having the important bits. But kind of as you said, like Central Park, there's some parts missing from it. I can never I never see. There's a part. I think I was talking about this on Discord the other day, called Strawberry Fields, and it's right near
Mm.
where John Lennon got shot. And I never see that over there. So I'm not sure if they just omitted it or it's not
It would be
there.
nice to see that if they had the big circle with the Imagine written in it, and like, but they didn't have
Yeah,
it that detailed, and that's what I mean. They had a representation, but it wasn't necessarily to scale.
yeah,
Yeah, that could be maybe a next step, the next game that we get, where we get like a more scale map, a more, say, Ubisoft historically accurate map, like they did with Paris and Notre Dame and co. But it's challenging. It takes time to build these things, especially to scale and to put all of that detail in there, especially when you're swinging over the top of it and probably never going to stop at it. The representation
Yeah,
for most players, especially those of us who've never been there, don't know these things exist. I didn't know there was a whole Imagine thing in Strawberry Fields. I knew Strawberry Fields existed, but I didn't know they got that like monument and such in there. So it's not something that I and much of the rest of the world would notice. So it's sort of weighing up the pros and cons of doing that. But yeah, if they could make it a little bit bigger, a bit more scale, a bit more height to it for the Spider-Man, that would be, I think that would be really fun, especially for the web swinging side of things.
absolutely. Speaking about traversal, and we have it all in here. I know we touched a little bit on traversal, so maybe this will be a bit of a mute question, but can you discuss some improvements that they made to the swinging or the parkour mechanics, and how they contribute to the feeling of being Spider-Man? So, let's really hone in on the evolution of going from swinging to now being able to use your wingsuit, and as well as powers which boosted you in the air. Did you think it was too much? Did it take away from being a swinging Spider-Man, or was it just awesome and fun? And we'll start with Dorgon this time.
This is the Spider-Man of the comics. This is how Spider-Man has been getting around for 60 plus years at this point. So being able to do it myself, we've rarely seen the web wings in other media. They haven't really appeared in many cartoons. They haven't really appeared in many movies. They were in Homecoming and then sort of disappeared by Far From Home for some strange reason. Um, so for me, it was really nice to see this core Spider-Man experience that many of us have known from reading the comics for many, many years put into our hands so that we could access it, use it. And it mixed up the traversal in such a way that it kept it engaging. Having done this for two previous games, it could have got a little bit stale by the end of this game if all you were doing was web swinging. But adding in those web wings, adding in like the venom boosts, the spider arm boosts that give you more height and give you more direction, even like the slingshot launch where you attach yourself to two buildings, Toby Maguire style, and launch yourself as far as you possibly can. Absolutely fantastic. It mixed up traversal in a way that kept it fresh, kept it engaging all the way through this particular release and probably into the next one as well. And it felt like the Spider-Man I've known since I started reading these comics 30 plus years ago. I don't know about you, Maker, if it had the same sort of effect for you, but I loved that.
Yeah, jump
um,
in.
I was I was a bit concerned at first because I had heard like how good the web flying was, and I just didn't want it to overpower, I guess, or like make it too strong to where you're not really swinging. Because to me, the swinging is the iconic Spider-Man. I know that he does have web wings in the comics, but um, I just wanted a balance. And while playing it, I still feel like there is a balance. You know, sometimes I'll be swinging, and then other times I will be gliding. But the gliding was obviously faster, and I didn't really have a complaint after playing through it. I think they did a great job with all the traversal mechanics, and you know, the slingshot was one of my favorites for sure because it just launches you and it really helps you traverse really far distances. I do think that some of the little tunnels, the wind tunnels, are really fast at getting around, and it's a good thing, but also it feels super unrealistic when I think about it. Because there'll be times where I'm so
Here's the
close to
issue.
the
Stop
wall.
thinking.
There's
Yeah,
always giant circles in the middle of the city.
yeah, exactly. You know, I see them flying through them all the time. Yeah, yeah. But overall, I thought it was really great, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest changes for me would be the speed of Spider-Man. I saw a short which detailed, just the differences which you saw in Miles Morales versus Spider-Man 2. And it's just epic how much quicker Spider-Man is in this game. And I think the faster you're going, the more fun you're having because traveling past these buildings at such crazy speeds, really amping it up with the zip lines and the boosts is a lot of fun. When traversal becomes more fun than fast travel, I think they've done a great job. And I think that's what we see here. Now I want to jump into side missions. Mary Jane, auxiliary missions, the Haley. I don't even know. I think for me, Haley's was a big thumbs down. I did not want to walk around doing spray paints. I get that it was a development into her character, but I'll just have that opinion right off the bat. EMF missions, those puzzles, putting them together. Mysterio, I think, was one of the most exciting things to do in terms of side missions. Other than the big stealth operations, which I thoroughly enjoyed taking everybody out without nobody seeing me. Always had to switch to Miles for that one. And yeah, let's get into it. So maybe talk about some of good things you liked from side missions and some bad things. You don't necessarily have to cover them all. We'll start with Dorgon this time.
The side missions, I loved that a lot of them were enclosed narratives, that they were telling their own story. They were just another moment happening in this world. I messaged you directly after I finished one of them because I had to stop playing because I was crying just because I'd had this beautiful moment of flying these pigeons across the entire map,
Seabird.
taking them to this park, and then getting back. And this guy who I'd helped in the first game, whose pigeons I'd caught and taken back to him, had just passed after this beautiful story of where he'd gone, what he'd done in his life, and how he wanted to leave his mark and such. And I was emotionally drained at that point just from one side mission. I'd only played that side mission. I turned it on, played that, and went to bed, sort of thing. I was done. It killed me off. But a lot of these side missions are where I found some of my biggest problems with the game. Desynchronized animations, voices appearing without mouths moving, and all this sort of stuff. Whilst the content of them and the unique gameplay that I got from a lot of them, especially those EMF missions, that you got some of the most unique gameplay from those side quests. A lot of the time, it's where I was finding bugs that were hampering my enjoyment and stuff in the game. So it was very much six of one, half a dozen of the other. I really liked what I was doing in the moment, but I always knew going into it that this is probably going to be a tougher experience than the main quest.
Well said, well said. I had a mission, I believe it was with the Prowler, where I just had this audio bug where the beeping would not stop. Even after I completed the mission, like the beeping just went on and on and on. I just, the bugs weren't game breaking. You just, save, close, reboot, and you're good to go. but just a little bit out of the immersion, like you say. The content though still hit hard. Maker, how did you feel? What were your highs and lows on these side missions? Give it to me.
Yeah, the pigeon mission is definitely one of the higher like missions that they do. At least for that quest chain, for the friendly spider, uh, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man quest chain, it had some really good ones, like the old man with where he was going back to the place where he met his wife, and
Yeah, yeah.
that was a really good one. And I feel like there are some great ones, and then the Fido mission at the end of it was a little weird to me because I'm like, why are we giving this
Whoa.
giant mechanical dog to this old lady, this blind
That was
lady?
amazing. That was an amazing mission, all right.
You're giving her a
I feel so
killing
many
machine.
bad. Yeah,
It doesn't feel safe.
it doesn't feel
It,
safe at all to me. I'm like, what if it malfunctions? What if it like
she
goes
could
on a
not be more
rampage?
safe. She could not be more
No,
safe.
if it goes on a rampage, it's just gonna slaughter everyone.
Like
At least
that
it'll be
neighborhood is no
quick.
longer safe.
Yeah,
it was uploaded with a million YouTube dog videos. Cute, adorable dog videos. I'm sure it'll be fine. There's no negative stuff on YouTube about
what if
dogs.
they got a wrong video in there and it will not be
I'm
good?
sure Genki filtered those 10 million videos pretty
Do
well.
you trust a 17-year-old with your life? Let's just ask that question.
I trust Genki. I trust Genki.
Um, I also kind of wish some of these side quests did have that like finale boss in it. There's several that just didn't. It didn't have anything at the end other than maybe like a cutscene. Like Prowler, I kind of wish there was a mini boss fight there, like right at the end, like something to excite me. And then obviously that's I really enjoyed the cinematic though for that where
Yeah, yeah,
yeah it
beautiful.
yeah and I mean, I thought they did a pretty good job with them. I do wish there were a bit more moments um, like the pigeon and the old man quests. Um, a little bit too predictable on some of them, where I would call out like that's going to be the bad guy, and it was like the cultural museum one. I like it, but I also at the same time I'm like I saw this a mile away. Um,
Yeah,
and I just wanted a little bit more from the side quests. You know, Mysterio was definitely one of my favorites. I like the challenge of actually having to do it in like these specific no hit challenges. I liked the challenge of it because to me those were probably the biggest challenges I had within the game. Um, but I won't speak too much about the difficulty. Um, but overall it was enjoyable. I really liked the some of the side quests.
have we lost our host?
I don't know.
He's
Oh, there
trying
we
to
go.
talk. I think he
Sorry.
might be muted.
Sorry. I was muted there for a second. I think a lot of side quests hit really well for me. The Wraith one specifically with the fire cult. That not only had a midway boss, but it made you use different gameplay mechanics. Now, I wanted to have more stealth elements. This was the only place where I could really explore being completely stealthy. I wish that there had been, more of a reward system for taking out the entire building without anyone even knowing you were there. But it was still fun in my mind to do so. And then at the end, when they tease Carnage, I was like, all right, get ready for the biggest fight. But no, they leave it on a cliffhanger. You're going to be coming up to it in the next game. So that, to me, was good and bad. I mean, yes, I wanted to fight Carnage here and now, but I get to know that he's coming up in the next one and absolutely going to be a great fight. The Venom quests, I love how they transformed the city. They came up midway. They were a new thing for me to do, which I didn't see coming. However, they were over before they started. They were all based on getting things done under 2 minutes. and there was no end boss to speak of when you finished all the quests. You just got a suit, which I love the suit, the 90s Venom Spider-Man. But I felt like it could have used another symbiote fusion character. Somebody could have ended that fight, I think. I think that was definitely one where it was missing. EMF missions. I mean, I feel like they have to put in these little puzzle things, but I didn't feel like it was more of a puzzle. It was more like trial and error, trying to match up those side things. I didn't really feel as if I was solving or becoming smarter or doing anything or like eliminating the genome sequences. I wish that it was just more, I don't know, less mini gamey and more sciency, but it's a weird complaincy. It's a
It's a
weird
complaint that
complaint.
they've tried to address from the
Right.
first game, because they had the sciencey stuff there, and it was much more sciencey oriented, where you were having to match genomes and match like power fluctuations and all this sort
On
of
the bar,
stuff.
yeah, I remember.
I
But
think I, th- I think the biggest issue with that was that they were ingrained in the main story. Like I remember, like
mm,
once or twice, you had to actually do it for to continue the main story. And I think that was my biggest complaint of the first game is like if you're gonna force me to do these things, like if I want to go beat someone up, I want to go do that.
yeah,
Um,
I think it was a direct like change to try and address what people felt like that they were too integrated into the story and not fun when you're doing the same thing every single time. But I really liked those puzzles, so that didn't really apply to me personally. I do like the changes. I didn't think it was so much trial and error. It was very much problem solving, looking at the shapes, looking at the connectors and where they would go within the pattern. But of course, everybody's different and everybody's going to want to do different things. I mean, we all had to do everything to get to the platinum trophy, but that doesn't mean we all have to like everything the same.
um, I did want to briefly talk about those. I thought they were okay, but not great. Like to me, most of them were super easy to solve.
Yeah,
Like the only ones that maybe were a challenge was like the last one, and that was it. All the others I completed pretty quickly. And I agree with Rudig's on the Venom missions. Those were too quick with only lasting like 2 minutes, and me beating them in like the first try. Um, it just felt
I
like it went
think
by really quickly.
Yeah, I think if we'd had another of Venom's children there, so we got Scream in the main story, but if the like Nests had given us Riot,
Yeah, Riot, I was
the
gonna say. That would have been
one of the
cool.
main bad guys from the movies, sort of thing, that would have been a really good ending to that. I do think the thought process was you'd complete all them and then take on Venom himself. But how many of us complete all of the side quests before completing the story?
I did, but I wanted to kind of go through all of them. I do wish that they had saved the Carnage one for kind of last because that
Mm,
way, or I think one of my complaints was I did the Carnage quest before Scream, so I knew that there were going to be more variants or more Venom style creatures out there before it even happened. And so I guess the scream was like, oh, okay, instead of like this, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did this type deal. Um, and I don't know. I just wish maybe there's like I hated the little wasp missions every single time it made me go into
I
or
liked
into
the
the
wasps.
it just
Save the
felt too
bees.
basic. It just wasn't fun, or like the bike mission, like it felt stiff. It felt like if you're gonna do something, I think you should do it right, and it just didn't feel like it was felt like they had really uh, fleshed it out.
It was
Yeah,
mini
yeah, I get what you're
games
saying.
for the sake of being mini games.
Yeah.
And maybe it should have had more epic meaning and purpose, but I do want to ask something that's not on here. I'm gonna go over the we talked about graphics and fidelity here. I want to ask what boss to you in your mind stood out the most, and let me know like what about that boss experience sort of held high to you. And for me, I'm gonna have to say, obviously, the Scream fight. I don't think I'll ever forget that. The emotional level that happened during that boss fight. I can't even remember, perhaps the mechanics. I remember there was a 4 phase fight, which I thought was pretty lengthy, but I just remember the content. And I don't think I've ever had content hit me like that during a boss fight. So for me, I think that one will always stand out in my mind. Maker, do you have a boss fight that kind of stands out in your mind and some elements that made it do so?
Um, I'm pretty particular about the Lee fight, Martin Lee fight, where um, Miles is kind of struggling. I wish they maybe had shown it a better way of his struggles with it. I kind of hated his angsty, like, I'm gonna ignore what Spider-Man is saying because I don't like Lee type deal. But I do wish that, like, maybe just like kind of a glance back at Lee and just getting mad that he can't fight Lee and can't defeat him. But I did like that whole like struggle within the mind type aspect, and I thought he was a good kind of catalyst for the subsequent climax that happened after that.
Negative Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Dorgon, was there a boss fight that stuck out to you in your memory and some elements that helped to do so?
The Peter Parker fight. Mostly because I had been inhabiting, I'd been Peter, I'd fought against Craven, and I'd got this beautiful flow going. I was in this perfect flow state of gameplay with Peter at the time. And then suddenly Miles comes in and you're fighting Peter to stop him killing Craven and get the symbiote off him. And that fight, what you were saying about Scream, the emotional charge within that, this is like Master and Padawan going toe to toe. It felt like Duel of the Fates sort of thing. And that fight, like, Peter is strong in that moment. This is an unhinged Spider-Man, unhinged Peter Parker trying to kill Miles, and I lost a few times. You had to be precision perfect to dodge, to parry, to ring the bell, to weaken him and bring him through. I think it was a 3 phase fight, even that one. It was so incredible because you'd been both sides of that fight within that gameplay segment. That felt so unique to me, so very unique and so wonderful. And I loved that sort of seamless switching between cutscenes and such that we got throughout the game. But that was the one that really stuck out, going from embodying that power to having to fight that power. It was an incredible juxtaposition in gameplay.
I agree that that Peter fight definitely hit hard emotionally. I was like, "No, I don't want to fight Peter. Come on. Why are you making me do that?" Um yeah. Well, you touched on something there that is a good segue into the next review item here, and that is difficulty. What level of challenge did each of you play the game at? And how did that affect your experience? Was it the difficulty that you thought it was going to be? Um, how did that gameplay really affect you in terms of difficulty? Uh, I'm gonna start with Dorgon this time, I think.
I played on Spectacular, which is the hardest that you can play on until you beat the game. And I honestly thought it was a good balance of difficulty. You felt incredibly strong, like a superpowered superhero to start with. But as Venom came into the fray, as Craven came into the fray, as these two titans started to rip the city apart and infest it with different symbiotes and such, you faced more of a challenge. The fact that no matter what my health level was, 3 hits and I was dead felt like an appropriate level of challenge for a superhero game. I'm not expecting to get one shot in these titles. This isn't give me God of War mode. This isn't a FromSoft game. I'm not there to feel underpowered, to be going up against things that can kill me in one blow. I think the 3 hits from superpowered foes was a good level of challenge. I would have liked it to be a little bit harder on occasion, but you do unlock ultimate difficulty when you beat spectacular. So I don't know what that's like. I haven't jumped into it yet. I hope that will sort of suit me to the ground. But I was okay with spectacular. It wasn't the hardest thing I've ever played. It wasn't the easiest thing I've ever played. It felt balanced to me.
I would agree with that assessment of spectacular. It did feel really well balanced. Maker, how do you feel about the difficulty? Um, yeah, tell me about your thoughts on it.
Um, I thought it should have been harder. I I felt like the first half I had no issues whatsoever, and typically when you put it on a harder difficulty, I think there should be even some challenge in the beginning. Um, and I just kind of didn't feel that for a long while. It wasn't until I think the Mysterio missions when I started to have trouble trying to land like the first or like the gold on all of them. Um, was when it started to be a bit more challenging. But then I went straight back into story, which was like super easy in comparison. And uh, I I kind of wish it was harder. And then that way, like you're like, oh, that was a challenge. And then you beat it. It's like, oh, you unlocked an even harder difficulty. And I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, let's see how I can, you know, get through it at an even harder difficulty. So I think it should have been for it to be the hardest mode you can pick out the bat. I think it should have been harder. Um, that's my personal opinion.
Totally
Yeah,
fair.
put the challenge for the people who want that intense challenge. I get that, and I think it makes those boss battles even more epic. Like you said, for instance, if everyone spent a day trying to beat Peter Parker, and then when you finally beat him on that hardest difficulty, you have this story to tell. It's definitely one of those moments that I like to share. I will say the difficulty did feel pretty smooth and balanced. It was almost like I would compare it to a God of War give me balance, that kind of mode. So when you said that, it rang true to that. And hey, that's the superhero. You have that balance of you have superpowers. I mean, Spider-Man takes a beating in everything. Are you really going to go down after two hits? Like that just seems unrealistic in a way to even make into a video game. So, I will give them that. It's hard to balance immersion of a superhero and easily dying. Um, so difficulty is there, and I have chosen some ultimate difficulty. I played about past the tutorial, which I'll say is way too long. Oh my gosh. After when you play the tutorial a second time, it's too long. I need my web wings now. I need my web gadgets now. I can't wait to New Game Plus so I can just pump it out on that. Uh, but the enemies are way more aggressive, I will say, and on top of that I feel like you go down even quicker. It's like a two hit and you're down. So definitely try the ultimate difficulty once New Game Plus if you're looking for an even greater challenge. uh let's jump into Easter eggs. um Easter eggs are riddled, I'm sure, throughout here. I myself am one of those gamers that usually is oblivious to most Easter eggs. I don't see them while they happen because I don't know all the references. Dorgon, I'm sure you know a lot of these references going on. Same with Maker, like Venom with wings. I'd never seen that before. That was freaking crazy to see him just sprout wings and fly away. One of the most epic moments in gaming for a while for me. Maker, is there any Easter eggs in particularly you felt were really cool to see? How did you feel that they did with those Easter eggs?
Um, they had this one was in the main quest. It was a Wong had the little note where it took
Yeah.
the object away. I like that, but at the same time, I'm like, if he's available to do this, he should be available to help out. Like what's going on here? I know it was a nod, but I wasn't a huge fan of um, like no one else kind of coming into the fray.
That has been explained in the free Marvel Unlimited comic that's currently running alongside the game. Um, the Earth 1408 Insomniac Peter is universe hopping with Earth 616 Comics Peter, and the Comics Peter asks him, like, is it just you in New York? Where are the other superheroes? And his response was, your guess is as good as mine. They're always off doing something else. So they've very much left New York to Spider-Man and sodded off to do their own thing. So they're not home. That is the canonical in-universe answer that we've had from the side comics for that one. It doesn't help if you haven't read that. For me, I quite liked it because I knew that was a thing, but I totally get it if you've not read that comic and Wong just pops up like, why couldn't you deal with this? Why am I sorting your crap out, sort of thing? Totally get that thought process.
Or why are you taking this portal tool away from me when this could help me
Yeah,
in an important fight?
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, yeah.
The portal was the only Easter egg I understood. I'm sure there was I mean, the costumes alone, massive Easter eggs.
Oh,
For instance,
yeah.
Miles wears a Wolverine costume, which is a nod to, the next
Wolverine game.
Insomniac game we could be seeing. There is a portion of the game where you swing past some building and Spider-Man speaks about a lawyer friend that he can get in touch with, which is a nod to Daredevil. Um, I like the Easter eggs. The suits are a great place to have them. That story element where you get all the spider bots and they get all sucked up and she's like, "Oh, don't tell Miguel." I'm
Oh,
like,
the Into the Spider-Verse portal.
I
That
don't
was
know who Miguel
beautiful.
is. Maker had to explain that to me. I just it's
You
like,
don't know
oh,
Miguel?
okay. I didn't watch the
Oh, we've got
Spider-Verse.
so much teaching to do for you, mate. So much teaching.
So
For
they did
me,
well. Yeah, go
yeah.
Dorgon.
For me, the Easter eggs were very additive a lot of the time. You mentioned Venom's final form. That form is ripped directly from a comics event from a couple of years back called King in Black, where the symbiote god comes to Earth and Venom defeats him and becomes the symbiote god. So having that as his form straight off the bat shows he is the god of all symbiotes, all Clintar across the universe, which was very, very interesting. And I loved that it was straight from page to screen. The suit that Harry Osborn wears when he's swinging around as one of the Spider Bros, that is a direct copy of the Agent Venom suit, which Flash Thompson wears in the comics. It's one of my all-time favorite Venom runs, the Flash Thompson one. Absolutely fantastic, and seeing that animated in-game, granted not on Flash, which slightly disappointing, but still having an Agent Venom appearance is amazing. The Spider-Verse one that you mentioned, where that portal appears, that is basically a follow-on from the Across the Spider-Verse movie, and just showing that they're all interlinked. The flashback, when we do flashbacks to Peter and Harry in high school, Peter Parker's Luke is directly out of the Ultimate Universe. The Ultimate Comics universe was like the relaunch for a new generation of Spider fans. So if you wanted to learn how Peter Parker became Spider-Man and became this great hero, they did eventually kill him off in the Ultimate Comics, and that's where we got Miles from. Miles's original universe was the Ultimate Comics, so that was a lovely nod to have that vision of him. Peter teaching is straight out of the J. Michael Straczynski run of Spider-Man comics in late 90s, early 2000s. Again, absolutely fantastic nod. One of the best runs with John Romita Jr. as the artist for that run. It led into things like the Totems and the Spider-Verse and the Inheritors. And then the other things that you've already mentioned, Cletus Cassidy, Norman Osborn blaming the Spider-Man and asking for the G serum. That is so obviously Goblin serum. And then we've got him and Carnage in the next game. I think we're seeing Red Goblin, not Green Goblin. I think we're seeing Red Goblin, which is where the Carnage symbiote attaches to a Goblin-infused Norman Osborn and basically destroys New York. It's set up so many cool things. And the final one that they do, like that final after credit scene with Cindy Moon, we're getting Silk. We are getting a third Spider Person. And I don't know how they're going to do that because she looks to be a lot younger than Peter. And in the comics, she's bitten by the same spider. as Peter, which means when they get in contact with one another, their pheromones mean they just start mating without control over their own body. And that would just seem really weird with the age gap that appears to have been put in there. So they're obviously going a different way with this, and I'm very interested to see what it is.
I don't think Mary Jane would like that unless she's into it. I'm not gonna put down if she wants a spider thruple. That's totally on her. Well, Dorgon, obviously the Easter eggs hit home with you, so that's good to hear from a story veteran. Voice acting. What is the quality of the voice acting? This may be the last time we get people doing voice acting, so let's appreciate it and criticize it before AI takes over all their jobs.
Oh my days.
Maker, how did you feel on the voice acting?
I thought it was very good. Not quite God of War level in my opinion, but I thought they did a very good job.
Absolutely. I feel like Miles is a bit of an annoying twerp, but that's just where he is right now. I hope when we see him next, he's more matured in his voice, but I feel like they capture. I get why Peter would want to kill him if he was infected with the venom. He's annoying. Shut up, Miles. Like, stop asking me so many questions. So I understood and I liked Mary Jane's voice acting. I thought she brought a lot of emotion to the character. I thought she really translated well, very believable as Peter's girlfriend. I thought Peter's stutters and isms were very well done on choice. That end scene where he's like, well, I want to talk to you. Well, the thing is, I've always been talking to you. I just not been talking to you about the thing I want to be talking to you about. Like, I just thought it was well done and believable. So I like to see that. And one thing I want to bring up before I forget it, because I wanted to bring this up before, when Venom ate Craven's head, that was flipping awesome. Flipping awesome to do in a video game. And Harry, when he transforms back and he's like, what did I just eat? What's in my mouth? Like, those moments I thought were really well done, really well mocapped, really well acted. So I do appreciate all that level of immersion in this game. Now,
Yeah, I think the cast actually knocked it out of the park across the board. I think they were excellent. Unlike God of War, which is probably why you're feeling a little bit more of a disconnect maker, the voices and mocap are different in this one. So where like Chris Judge and Sonny Suljic are on stage acting it out fully in the moment, so you're getting the voice and motion capture in one fell swoop with God of War. For Spider-Man, they have like the face capture, so the faces of most of the characters are the people who are doing the motion capture, and then you have the voices coming afterwards and they have to like dub over what's there. For me, the guys who have been doing that, like Yuri Lowenthal and Neddy Jeter for like Miles and Peter, were absolutely fantastic. Especially the dark Peter, the symbiote infused Peter. For me, like I don't really like Naruto, but there is a certain arc with a certain villain that is voiced by Yuri Lowenthal that just he hits home, and that voice was coming through, that menace, that violence, just in his words, let alone what actions you were seeing on screen. I thought he did a phenomenally fantastic job. Um, yeah, out of the park across the board. J. Jonah Jameson, brilliant. I love the fact that he went on a whole thing about Spider-Man changing his suit too regularly because it's a fashion parade or something. I love that little nod. I don't really have any complaints. I do just want to give a shout out. I can't remember her name, but the actress behind Rio Morales, she made black suited Spider-Man sit down, shut up, and take notice. Phenomenal actress, absolutely brilliant.
oh, that was a very powerful scene, I will say. As we're wrapping up here, I want to jump to your standout feature of the game. Could be any element, graphic wise, gameplay wise, story wise. What is the one thing you would say is a must-play, takeaway, Spider-Man only feature for this game? We'll start with Maker of Chaos if you have something. I know this is a massive question to
Yeah, this
ask you
is
off
a
the
tough
bat, so
one.
I'm giving you some room to stall. Maybe I should answer here first. Um, I will say the lizard fight, a boss fight that traverses in an open world throughout the city, I think was absolutely epic. It was novel. It was something I hadn't really seen or experienced in a game before, where a boss is just shredding through the city and you're hell bent on taking it down, going up buildings, through streets, just leaving the wreck in that wake. Even in the Venom fight, most boss fights, they're in arenas, right? This boss fight
Yeah,
took
yeah.
it and put it into the world, and you had to traverse through your traversal area and fight this boss. So I really do think that was a key moment. The look of the lizard, the teeth, the emotion you felt trying to get Dr. Connors to save Harry, which didn't really pan out, but hey, it was a cool boss fight, and I think that will be a standout for me and something novel. Maker, Dorgon, Maker, if you have something, let me know.
Yeah,
If not, we can throw it to
I'll I'll
Okay.
I'll talk. Um, for me, it's probably that moment when Venom bit off Craven's head. I almost wish there were more brutal moments like that. It I like when I was playing as Venom, I'm like, man, why can't I just like bite into these people and kill them? Like I wish this was rated M. Like or because like come on, like you get to play as Venom. I want to be a bad Venom, and that's like one of the things that I kind of wish they had went full on into. But I still think with just Venom in general is the must play. Like I love how like evil he looks. Like they nailed the look of Venom. Even the final fight with the wings was perfect. It um, I just wish playing as him I got to be a bit more brutal.
Nah, you just want to get out of bounds and go cycling as Venom. That
Yeah.
is
Yeah, you want to go
hilariously good fun.
cycling.
Yep. Hmm.
You could do it. You could go out of bounds and you could do all sorts of
Yeah.
weird stuff with Venom. It's actually great.
Really?
I love it. Um,
Oh my gosh.
it for me, there's no one moment. This is a package deal. I feel the story has so many different threads that seem completely disparate when you first start playing, and it's not until about that halfway point that everything starts to come together, and then you're on this really fast roller coaster to the end because you just want to see what's next, what's next, what's next, what's next, and these disparate threads, everything that you do in the game has to come together for those to happen. I think the package deal is what I like most about it. It's the one standout feature. There are so many games out there where you get your core story and then you get your side quests and you get this and you get that and you get the other, and they don't feel like part of the same whole. Whereas this very much felt like part of the same whole.
I would 100% agree that altogether it's a very fluid delivery of a product. And all the pieces make the sum of its parts. It's not disjaded in any way. Um, so we're getting to our overall opinion, and I want to answer the question: do you think this will be a game of the year contender? In your opinion, does this game live up to the high expectations, the marketing dollars that Sony pushed into this thing? How does it feel after you finished it? And will it be up there? We'll start with Dorgon this time.
I think it will be up there for some awards shows. I think the Game Awards will probably put it in its 6 nominations. It won't win it. Um, I think many other places will leave it off the list of nominations. This is an excellent game. It is a good overall package, but it is hampered by performance issues throughout. It's hampered by missing accessibility settings. It's hampered by weird design choices and such, some of which you can turn off, so it's not the end of the world, but it's an extra step for me to get to the game that I want to play. Like, who on earth has film grain, motion blur, and chromatic aberration turned on and up to max? Which moron thought that was a good design choice in a brand new, this gen only game? I do think it'll be in the conversation. I think it will be nominated. I think it will win some publications Game of the Year. I could not, in good conscience, with the experience that I have had with this game, offer it that title as it stands right now. It just performs too poorly, too buggily to be able to say, yeah, it's defo going to get Game of the Year.
Well said. Well said. Maker, your thoughts?
I definitely think it's probably in like the top 5 games I've played this year, but I it just there's just kind of a level above it that I feel like it just doesn't reach for me. Like to me, God of War Ragnarok was a little bit of a step above what this was to me, and I think it'll be nominated, just not winning it, unfortunately.
And for me, I am going to give this the Rudig's chef's kiss. This was an absolutely thrilling game to play from beginning to end. I felt like I was sitting down at the movie theater and enjoying another chronicle of the spider hero that I love so much. I felt like the story was epic, the gameplay was fun, entertaining, combat was great and well done. I can't think of an experience that really overtook Spider-Man for me this year. It's definitely in my top 5, if not top 3 experiences for the year. So if I was writing the game awards, I think we'd all know who would win number 1, but this would definitely be up there. And I would say yes, it is a game of the year contender. And I think Insomniac did really well here. And we'll see this game be echoed on different editions and different systems, hopefully ported to the next one in later years. So all the best to the people who made Spider-Man. Thank you to my wonderful panel for joining me and talking Spider-Man. Spoilers on. And to everybody else, be kind and bring peace into the world. All right, take care, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See ya.
Grove, grove, grove. Why try to believe in me? Why try do I even need to? I die with the season leaves. I glide with the season breeze. True, my mind so easily spooked. I ride just to be the me. Oh, finds hype super decently smooth. Nice type, but as sick as bitch.